Okay. So what I will do is um, I'm going to do like your intro, like whatever bio you want me to read for you. Go ahead and send that to me and I will record that separately. And then, so what I'm just going to do, I'm just going to say, welcome back to another episode of, the Upgraded Career Podcast. I'm your host. And today I'm joined by my friend, Ahlia, who is, what title should I give you in my quick lead in?
Just entrepreneur, a founder of Career Bio. And if you want, I can explain what that is because
Yes. Yeah.
like, what does that mean? Yeah,
And how did you say it again?
Career Bio. So Career, like it's a play on career, but Career and Bio, like BIO, but it's spelled BAYO.
Okay.
And it means joy.
Okay. Oh, lovely. Okay, cool. So I'll just say the founder of Career Bio, and and I'll just say, thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining and everything. Just tell us first before as we get kicked off, tell us a little bit about your career journey. So I'll have you kind of just go through kind of how you got to this place today, and then you can explain what your current business is.
Okay.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. Oh, and I do not edit a ton. That's not the vibe of this podcast. So if you flub your words, if you make up words, that's totally fine. I just ahs and whatever, everything, I leave that in because that's just like, again, I want this to sound like us just having a chat.
Yeah.
But if you're like, Nicole, that really did not come out right, just say that. Well, I can go back and edit that out. Not a problem. That's super easy peasy. But I don't want this to sound like a robot or sound like I had somebody on the podcast a while ago. She sounded a lot like she was giving a talk. Like, no, I don't want you to sound like you're giving a speech. I want you to sound like we're having a chat. So, so that's that. Okay. So, oh, and drink water, do whatever you need to do there. That's cool too.
Okay.
We're chill over here at the Upgraded Career Podcast.
Mhm.
All right. So let's go ahead and do it. Okay. So, welcome back to the Upgraded Career Podcast. I am your host, Nicole Case, and today I am joined by my friend Ahlia Kitwana, who is the founder of Career Bio, and I am so excited that she is on the show today talking to us about our strengths. So, Ahlia, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, tell me about your career journey because I think you have a really really interesting perspective and just background that you bring to the table. So, tell us kind of where you got started.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that because I was like, oh, I'm not prepared for a podcast. I have a pie shirt on, so it's like my one of my nerdy shirts. I originally went to school to study engineering, so that's a remnant of that. I studied electrical engineering. Um, Went on to get a master's, and then worked in a lab, like a dark lab with no windows or people, for a year out of grad school. I hated it. And so I quit and moved to New York. And at first, I waited tables. Um, and eventually, I ended up teaching math at another shout out to Pi.
Right.
I ended up teaching math at a high school in Harlem for a couple of years. And also, I should say that I moved to New York because I fell in love and moved in with my boyfriend,
Mm,
which, you know, for better or worse, that's, what I did. We ended up getting married and having a family. And after I started a family, I realized that I wanted more flexibility. That's a very important thing for me.
mhm,
So I ended up going back to engineering, but this time in a reliability engineering capacity. And that suited me better or more.
mhm.
Because like in reliability, you get to like basically the gist of the job is to look at a system design and figure out where and how it's going to fail and mitigate that failure.
Mhm.
But in doing that, I get to talk to lots of different disciplines and work with lots of different people, as well as like there's a very analytical and problem solving piece to it as well, technical. Um, so did that for a long time. Um, and I haven't told this story. I don't know if I've done this live. So I was working for a lot of different defense contractors, and one of the people or one of the companies, so these are Fortune 500, um, I work for, to do the job, you have to have a security clearance,
Mm,
and I got top secret security clearance. And then every time you get more and more clearance, you learn more and more about the mission and what the design or the system you're working on is actually used for. Um, and I found out what I was working on and what they were using it for, and I was like, I just I don't agree with this. And
right.
I had like a an existential crisis, I guess. It was like really hard for me to justify doing what I was doing for the ends that they were using it for.
Mhm.
And not to say that I am like disagreeing with some of the things that the United States has to do to protect our freedom. But I personally don't necessarily want to like say, oh yeah, I was the one behind that.
Yeah. Yeah, I get
Behind,
that. Yeah,
you
I
know,
totally get
and
that.
so I started looking for something else. And originally I started going into project management. And then I realized that not only did I not want to do whatever I was doing because of ethical reasons, I also just didn't feel like being boxed in. Like I
Mhm.
didn't want to say I lived and died in a cubicle, and and I never gave like doing my own thing a shot.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of when I started to branch off into entrepreneurship. And originally it started with a blog, and that turned into career coaching, which is how
Mhm.
I met you originally. And I did that for a couple of years. Um, in 2020, I was also, I was businessing or whatever, which is, I'm going to leave that into. Uh, but I was also teaching community college, and when the world shut down, like my class moved online,
Mhm.
and a lot of my students were what we call the essential workers, and they still had to go out and go to work and
Mhm.
cashier and be janitors and all those things. And they were scared, as was pretty much everybody. We didn't know what we were dealing with.
Yeah.
Um, and what I saw in them were like they had a lot of inherent gifts and strengths that they could have used to get other kinds of positions. And that's kind of like the impetus to like where I am today, is that I created uh career bio to help people like the students that I had in 2020, help them identify other opportunities. First, identify their strengths and
Mhm.
superpowers, but align those with possible career paths for themselves, and also build a career for themselves as opposed to just taking what they know is possible, like expanding
Mhm.
the field for them. So,
I
yeah.
love that. No, I love that. And I grew up, in a small town in Western Pennsylvania, and I was a first generation college student. So I grew up around these really intelligent, really amazing people that, either didn't go to college or didn't see that that was a possibility for them and didn't recognize that the strengths that they had could be translated into other opportunities for them just because they didn't know any better. They didn't have anybody there to help guide them,
Mhm.
guide them on that path to, better opportunities that would be not only financially better, but better for their families and better just for their own, just their own satisfaction in the work that they get to do, which kind of leads us into this whole conversation around strengths, around our strengths. So I got introduced to the Clifton Strengths Finder assessment when I was in college, and I have used that assessment in my corporate life at all the companies that I've worked at, and I now use them with my private executive and leadership clients. That's what we do in our second session with everyone is the Strengths Finder, and I know you are officially certified in Clifton Strengths Finder, and I know you use it in your business today and with your clients today. So tell me just kind of how you stumbled upon this assessment, or just stumbled upon this whole idea of just developing and leading into your strengths.
Wow. I came upon it back when I was engineering or
Mm-hmm.
in engineering in corporate America. Um, I think I saw the book first, like
Mm.
in I think Barnes and Nobles. I do hang out in bookstores too sometimes. So I saw the book first and then was led to the assessment. So I think I took that. That was a long time ago. I'm not going to say how old I am. Uh, but that was the first time I did it. And then I like, kind of circled back to it over the course of my career. Um, when I started doing career coaching, that's when I got certified in
Mm-hmm.
it. And I like fell in love with it, for lack of a uh, better word or a term, but I like the ethos. I like the
Mm-hmm.
fact that you lead with your strengths. You lead with what you are naturally good at. And a lot of people phrase or immediately turn to the dichotomy of like strengths and weaknesses.
Mm-hmm.
And with Clifton strengths in particular, it's like you just go with your strengths.
Yeah.
You manage the stuff that's at the bottom of the list. Like there's 34 themes, and usually for an individual, the top 10 are what we naturally like lean towards.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's the stuff in the middle, which you can tap into, but it's just not as natural for you. And then like the last 10
Mm-hmm.
are definitely not necessarily, they're not your strong points. However, it's not something that if I were coaching, I would coach to or
Yeah.
like worry about. Like, okay, those, like for me, what's at the bottom? Discipline, consistency, all those things. And like what I do now, and I love it, is that is the essence of a great team, right? I
Mm-hmm.
have my strengths, and now I need to go and find somebody who has like the discipline and the consistency, to kind of like help keep me in line, because otherwise I will just run off with like idea after idea after idea and maybe finish some of them and maybe not. So it's like I love the working in an even a more a team environment,
Mm-hmm.
and seeing how everybody's strengths play together to get this better outcome.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. And I remember it's funny you said that you were kind of going into this project management space for a while, because I had shifted at one point in my career. I was like, "Oh, I'm a little bit bored. Let me shift into something different." And I had an opportunity to become a project manager or program manager inside of an HR team, and leading kind of the performance and talent development programs at a company that I was at. And I realized very quickly that being a project manager is different than the role that I was in, and it was not utilizing my strengths, and I was utterly miserable in that role. And I was like, "Oh," like, and then I realized that I'm kind of looking at the strengths that I have, and the things that I enjoy doing, like that particular role just didn't lend itself to me being in my strengths every day, and it was utterly exhausting, right? Kind of sitting there in a role where like, when you have this potential, you have all of these great capabilities, and you're just not able to tap into them on a day-to-day basis. It can be
Yeah.
really, really defeating for sure. So tell me, like, short of coming to you and taking the Clifton Strengths Finder assessment, how does somebody, kind of identify what their strengths are?
So I'll give you this. It's not like a brand new exercise, but I've been using this lately. I wish I had the sheet with me. It's at home, but um, I would have a person list. like 5 to 7 things that they know they're good at and or the best at, right? So just like list those things on a line on one side of the paper, and then add in maybe 3 more things that either bring you joy
Mhm.
or, like bring you peace, right? Um, and then the next part of that exercise is on the other side of that sheet. List the top 5 functions that are necessary to perform your job. And depending on who it is, it's like either the job you're in right now
Mhm.
or the next job or the job that you're after,
Mhm.
right? So then you have these 2 lists, like the job function and everything that you know you're good at and or brings you joy. And then I ask them to map the functions to like the things that they're good at. And in doing that exercise, like if you really follow it through, they're basically listing their strengths
Mhm.
and connecting those to the job functions that they have and or desire to be. And it's a fun exercise for me, and it's like it reveals different things to different people. So like you, for instance, like if I were your coach back then when you were a project manager or thinking about it, and you had to list all the things you're good at, and then you list all the things that are required for this job, you might have only had like 2 lines, and you're like, I don't. Maybe that's not the job for me.
Yeah.
And or we could have like problem solved and said, hey, like well, you have future individualistic arranger input. Probably would have used your arranger for that job. Um, but I would have pointed out like maybe some like creative ways you could have used
Mhm.
your strengths or what you think you're best at to accomplish that job. And maybe you would have had to take it just to get to the real, the top job that you want.
Yeah.
Um, but that's um that's one of my favorite exercises. So I think it's called your best at or at
Mm.
your best or something like that.
Oh, I love that. Well, if is it a link that you could share?
Um, it is not. um, but I can probably write it up and provide it as a PDF or
Yeah,
something.
absolutely. We can include it in the show notes for everyone. Because yeah, that sounds like a really, really cool activity that um that really gets you to start thinking about again the things that you're really good at, the things that you like to do. Because I think that's another really great point that you made that you might be really good at something, but do you like it? Is also another part of this. I don't know if anyone remembered the movie Center Stage back in the 90s. It was like this ballet dancing movie
Mhm.
with a bunch of non-famous people. But it's just like a movie that came out when I was like in middle school and I was obsessed with it. And there was a piece in there where the one of the ballet dancers says that, yeah, I'm really good at this, but I actually don't enjoy it. She's like, I don't have the heart to be a ballet dancer anymore. So they show her going off to college instead of
Mhm.
continuing her dancing career. She actually goes off to college and she seems happy there. So I think that's another layer that we want to make sure that we are investigating whenever we're sitting down thinking about what is our next step or what is it that we want to pursue. Yes, are you good at something naturally? Do you naturally have a strength in this area, but also do you like doing it? That's the other
Yeah.
piece too.
Yeah.
But how do you kind of balance this idea of developing your strengths, but also making sure that you're not forgetting about those weaker areas or in corporate speak, the areas of opportunity, right? Because I know it would be awesome if we could all just like craft the most ideal dream job that we only ever have to do things that align with our strengths, but that's just not reality. That's not even reality in a business, right? Like
Mhm.
even though you and I both went off to craft the businesses that we love, we still have to do things in our business that we might struggle with. So how do you kind of balance, again, developing those strengths, amplifying those strengths, but also working around those areas of weakness or opportunity?
Okay. There's a few answers. It depends on your role.
Hmm.
Um, as I said, like there may be a job that you take on that like you don't love, right? But you know it's going to get you to the next
Hmm.
level. So there is it depends on the situation, but sometimes you just have to accept that this is kind of what I have to do right now to get to the next place. Um, but you can lean on the strengths you do have to accomplish the things that you're not necessarily great at.
Mhm.
I'm trying to think of a good example. So I am some of the things that I'm weaker at, like consistency and discipline, for instance, um, which are amazing strengths to have as a business owner, right? Like if you can be consistent and disciplined, like you can go a long way.
Yeah.
However, those are not my strengths, right? So what what can I do as an individual who does not have those as the top strengths? One thing you can do is like get support, right? So you can get tools that will help you become more disciplined, and get
Yeah.
the tools that work for you, right? Like I can schedule out my calendar for months ahead and still not follow it, right? Like, so I mean it helps, it's a reminder. But like I got a VA to help me like stay on task, right? So
Mhm.
you build your own support team if you can. Um, and another thing I do is just kind of like use the strengths that I do have to like make the consistency happen. So like
Mhm.
I might I'm trying to think of my strengths here.
Well, I can definitely relate to the consistency and the discipline thing. That those are also not top strengths for me, and I think people are surprised when they hear
Yeah,
that.
I am completely surprised because
Yeah,
like
people are super surprised when they hear that consistency and discipline are not a top strength for me at all. And I think, and you're so right though, that you just kind of either build the team around you or you just figure out what those strengths are and you lean into that. So for me, again, consistency, discipline, not top strength, but communication is a top strength for me. So I am super consistent at putting out a weekly podcast. I was actually this was actually something that held me back from launching a podcast earlier than what I thought. Earlier than what I wanted to, because I was like, oh, I'm never going to be consistent with it. I'll never keep up with it. I'll never do it every week because I'm not a consistent and disciplined person, but I've leaned into this strength around being an
communicate.
arranger and having communication being a top strength for me. So I've been really consistent about putting out a weekly podcast. Where I need the help and where I recently got some assistance is in the marketing side of it. So I create the podcast. I've hired an amazing woman through the Riveter, which is another amazing women owned business, where they've matched me with a marketing assistant. And so she's listening to my podcast and then she's creating some draft like social media posts and like graphics and stuff like that, because that is her strength. And like she tells me all the time, she's like, oh, Nicole, I love just listening to your podcast and then pulling out those great nuggets for you. She's like, this is absolutely my strength area. So like we've now come together to like really complement each other, right? And so it's been so much fun. But there's definitely been areas of my business that like I don't enjoy doing, or at work. I'm not a huge spreadsheet person. Analytical is my least is my least strength, isn't it? My number 34.
Yeah.
And like we just have to, for me, I guess what I found too is that it can be really energy draining for me to sit in spreadsheets for a period of time. So I just know that about myself. I'm like, okay, this might be kind of a long day for me or energy draining. So let me like plug in like a walk or plug in like a fun podcast interview or something like that that does lean into my strength. So I'm not just like completely sucked down into an area that's not a strength for me. So that's
Mhm.
how I've kind of navigated this throughout my life and my career.
I know that about you. I was like, surely she has like consistency in the next, like, no,
Nope.
but yeah. Um,
No, I
and
have ADHD. So I'm like way not consistent or disciplined.
I do too. But yeah, like batching and a whole lot. There's a lot of tricks that you have to like know about yourself
Yeah.
that will help you work your way around not having the strengths that are required, or not I wouldn't even say strengths, the skills that are
Yeah,
required to get the
totally.
job. Um, yeah, very
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we think about like someone working in the corporate world
Mhm.
and they're trying to, get promoted, trying to move up, trying to continue to, achieve, these particular career goals. How do you kind of figure out how to align your strengths with both the business goals and with your career goals? How do you kind of like figure all of that out?
Wow, that is I mean, honestly, I mean, and I'm going to say globally, I know every business, like corporate business, is different, but at the end of the day, they're going to need to make money, right?
Mhm.
So I would, like, without knowing who the client is or what company they're at, figure out how you can demonstrate how you affect the company's bottom line, and how you can shine. Like, another thing, like even when I was working in corporate, like learning how to like toot my own horn or let people like be seen,
Yeah.
um, was a very difficult thing for me, and it still is. Like, I had to learn how to do that. As an entrepreneur, is like you have to be out there talking about what you do and
Mhm.
saying all the things and being seen. So that was very much a stretch and a discomfort for me when I started off in business. Same thing though, like in the corporate world, you have to like figure out how are you going to let people know that you are killing
Yeah.
it, and like also let them know that these are the things that you want. So like I would also, I would advise getting kind of like a champion, like somebody's going to like toot your horn for you in the boardroom, and or like when they're doing the ranking thing, or if they do the ranking thing at the
Mhm.
company. But yes, having a cheerleader on board like goes a long way. Being seen goes a long way. And just getting out there and talking to people.
Yeah.
Um, and that like going back to one of your previous question, like like doing things that are not necessarily your strength, like being uncomfortable, that's what forces you to grow,
Mhm.
right? That's going to force you to grow into the position that you want, or to be where you want to be. If you're going to like just like stay put and just like be nice and comfy,
Yeah.
like, and that's good if that's what you want to do, right? But if you want to go further, if you want to go to the next place, you're going to have to get get uncomfortable.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I think that's a really great point because, like you said, as you continue to move up, your scope and your responsibilities get bigger. They don't get smaller the further up you go, right? So it would be it's kind of obvious on one hand to like think, oh yeah, I'm gonna have to pull on more and more strengths. I might have to go down that list a little bit further and pull on some more things. Or again, like we've said, if you are in a position where you can build a team around you, I one of the things when I was learning Clifton's Strengths Finders for the first time, one of the things that really resonated with me was that not all leaders need to be well-rounded. All teams need to be well-rounded, right? Which I thought was really great. So, and even as a leader, you don't need to be the expert at every single thing that your team potentially does. You need to know enough to be dangerous. And you can only learn enough to be dangerous by actually putting yourself out there and trying it and actually starting to get your feet wet with whatever that thing is. So again, for me, spreadsheets are not my jam. I'm not, this really fancy Excel person, but I learned how to do enough. I learned the VLOOKUPs. I learned the pivot tables. I learned enough to like make myself effective in my job. But, so I like figured out how to work around that, but I partnered with other people in my organization that were like really, really good at that if that's what was necessary at the time. And I never felt like my lack of Excel skills was holding me back because I figured out what I needed to do enough in order to kind of get by. And then, like you said, people weren't seeking me out for my Excel skills. People were seeking me out for my communication skills, for my presentations, for my, thought leadership in that particular area.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so tell me, what are some maybe pitfalls that maybe or misconceptions that people should be aware of when they kind of start down this path of personal development and just developing their strengths?
One, well, actually not one, but one of the bigger pitfalls or like traps I think that I've seen is kind of like becoming a personal development junkie.
Oh,
Um
yeah.
yeah, like just like and I get it. Like it's like you always want to do more and be more and like expand and grow. I get that. I am not knocking it. It's kind of like it's very much a dance.
Mhm.
But um I think in some cases that that addiction, that cycle, like you or a person can lose sight of who they are even
Mhm.
and like just not recognizing or accepting that they're already enough.
Yeah.
Um in some cases it's like there's like this um thought or mantra that you're just not enough, like you're just never
Mhm.
quite there. And like I think it also has to be acknowledged that who you are and where you are is okay too.
Yeah.
um yeah, so
Yeah, no, I love that.
striving.
Thank you so much for sharing that because even just today, I was on a call with a client and we were talking about positioning herself for this next big role and like we were going through her accomplishments and the things that she's capable of doing in her strength areas and she was like, "Well, I've only done that thing once." I haven't done that enough. I haven't done that enough yet to be called the expert. And like she was really like diminishing herself. So for her, it was like next certification, next training course, the next thing for her to feel like she's enough. And I was like, who gets to decide? Who gets to decide whenever you're enough? So I definitely agree with that by going down this development, this professional development and personal development path, like I feel that it can get really, really addicting. I personally have, um, I no longer allow myself to read personal development or business books at night and in bed. Like I schedule time in my calendar to read those types of books at night. It's all fiction. I just read fiction books at night in bed because it got to be too much. It got
Yeah,
to just be
like you're
too
trying to go to
much,
bed,
right?
right? You're trying to go to sleep and
Yeah, I need to go to sleep. I need to turn my brain off. I want some entertainment, not just,
yeah,
how can I continue to achieve and go and more and more and more. Like,
right,
there's a point where it is enough. Like you can continue to achieve without feeling like you're constantly behind.
exactly.
Yeah, awesome. So, tell us more about your company and how you work with individuals and companies along with using their strengths.
Okay, so it's Kirill Bio. Did we talk about the name yet? Maybe not. So
No,
Kirill,
no, tell us more about where did this name come from?
Kirill is a play on career, and Bio means joy in Yoruba, which is it's a Nigerian
Yep.
language, and so it's career joy. Um, I have not worked with individuals, like done one-on-one work in a while.
Mhm.
So I typically like I will work with like leadership teams or executive teams, like just to kind of like work on strengths in that way and
Uh-huh.
maximize identifying, helping them get to know each other and how to lean on each other. Um, and I also work um, in excuse me, not in job readiness programs and workforce development type programs,
Mhm.
nonprofits. That's the non that I was looking for. Um, that work with young people, usually ages 18 to 24 or plus a couple of years or minus a couple of years. And I help the young people find their strengths and superpowers and align those with possible career paths. Um, and like so the next step beyond
Mhm.
that is like I'm thinking about how to make that into a platform. Um, I did, as you know, I don't know if you remember, but I made an original career pathways platform um, that, like, as I sold it, like people were just honing in on the strengths and superpowers
Mm.
module, and that was it. Like that's all they really wanted. And so that's what I've been workshopping over the past year with these job readiness programs. And just like in thinking about how to expand it, I want to get it onto another online platform so that I can get it in front of more people.
Mhm.
What else am I doing? That's the biggest thing right now is just like workshopping and thinking about the next steps to get into more people,
Yeah.
get it into the hands of more people.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me more about these free workshops that you do.
Okay, so the free workshops are the oh, I'm shaking my computer, sorry. Uh the free workshops, I call them mini and mighty strength and superpowers workshops. So they're not the full-blown workshops that I get paid to do, but it's kind of like
Mhm.
a taste.
Yeah.
And what I do is I ask people to take the Clifton Strengths assessment, and I give them a code so they get their top five, and then we come to the workshop, talk about what everybody's strengths are and like the patterns. Like I'm really good at pattern recognition too, so that's like how I'm able to like look at teams and how they
Mhm.
form together. But kind of looking at the similarities and differences in that workshop. So usually like there's been as few as two people show up and as many as like 8 or 10,
Mhm.
and just like talk about like who has what strengths. And like yesterday I did one and everybody had connectedness, which was
Mm.
I thought like really interesting. And like speaking also to the fact like there's four domains, right? There's strategic thinking, which is green, influencing, which is orange, executing, which is purple, and relationship building, which is blue. And people tend not to have one of those colors in
Mhm.
their in their top five. And they're like, oh no, I can't function. It's like, yes, you can.
Yeah.
Um, like all my life, I've never, well, not all my life, but as long as I've been taking the Clifton Strengths thing, I've like had very little blue in my top 10. And I would dare anybody to say that I'm not, good with people, right? I'm
Yeah.
not best, right? I'm not gonna like, I'm not Tony Robbins, right? But I can connect with people,
Yeah.
right? I just do it in my own way. And that's I think you asked something like this in another way, but I may not have like the relationship building strengths, but I'm really good at remembering facts and seeing patterns and all that other stuff. So when I run into Sarah at the office, I will likely remember that Sarah's mom was in the hospital the week before. So I'll
Mhm.
say, hey, how's your mom doing? And like I remember those things about people.
Yeah.
And that allows me to make a meaningful connection with them. So everybody moves in their own way and accomplishes what they need to in their own way. And that's what I really like about this whole paradigm. So,
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we'll put some links into again in the show notes to your free workshop. So people want to get a taste of it or again, even just want to reach out to you to have you come in and maybe do some work with their team.
okay.
So where can everyone find you if we want to just follow along and see more of what you're working on? Where can we all find you?
Right now, the best way to find me is just look me up on LinkedIn.
Mhm.
Ahlia, Ahlia. I'm pretty sure I'm the only Ahlia. No, maybe I'm not. I'm lying because it's a worldwide platform now, right? Ahlia Kitwana. So Ahlia, and the last name is Kitwana, Kitwana on LinkedIn, and reach out, and I
Yeah.
will be sure to get back to you.
Awesome. Yes. And again, we'll put a link directly to your LinkedIn handle right in the show notes. So everyone can make sure they found the right Aaliyah. Well, thank you so much for joining us today and just walking us through, you know, leaning into our strengths and figuring out how to navigate our areas of opportunities as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Awesome.
I think you're still recording, but
I
is
am.
that
Oh yeah, I am. Hold on. I'll turn it off.
no, you don't have to. Just
In our in the Riverside platform, like you have